Hi folks, welcome to the first video development diary for Mesoamerica Universalis. My name is Nathan C, and I'm here to guide you through some of the recent changes that we've been making to the game. For those not in the know, Mesoamerica Universalis is a total overhaul mod for EU4 that zooms in on the Mesoamerican cultural region and represents it in absurd detail. We released the initial version of the mod back in February. Now, what have we been doing since March the 14th, the last time that we updated our initial 0.6 version? We have been at work on update 0.7, codenamed Nezahualcoyotl, after the famous poet king of Texcoco in central Mexico. The update focuses on fleshing out that region, with a lot of new flavor content. However, most importantly, it involves a total map overhaul that makes the old map look like it was made by a kindergartner with a crayon. The number of provinces has gone up from 975 to 2,336. We've just recently finished this map overhaul and wanted to show it off a little bit before finishing the rest of the update. As you can see here, to make it all look as nice as it does, we spent hundreds of man-hours and over $1,000 collecting a vast array of secondary and primary sources and converting them into an in-game map. We relied on more and better sources than the previous version and had to do significantly less guesswork. The key sources that let us bring the map to the next level were Aztec Imperial Strategies by Frances Berdan, A Guide to the Historical Geography of New Spain by Peter Gerhard, and Los Señoríos Independientes del Imperio Azteca by Nigel Davies. Many others were important as well, and you may see them flash on your screen at certain times. But those three books had the best maps and allowed us to reconstruct a more detailed political geography with much more accurate provincial borders than we were able to previously. Now, the world of Mesoamerican studies is in some ways a minefield. Uncritical reliance on popular sources and even primary sources, to be frank, has resulted in the spread of many myths and misconceptions, many serving various religious and political agendas. For this reason, when working on a mod about the area, thorough research is of paramount importance, so we exclusively relied on peer-reviewed academic books and articles, and avoided using any popular sources whatsoever. We'll be listing the main sources as I said up on the screen. A very significant amount of time was spent making the map look aesthetically pleasing. Our team leader Ballistic spent around 20 days hand painting the color map in Photoshop. If you zoom in on the image you see before you, you may be able to see all of that is hand painted. Everything you are about to see is as accurate as our knowledge of current research allows. I will note that it is subject to refinement and change before we release it, so don't freak out if you see something weird. In fact, if you see something you believe to be a gross inaccuracy, please don't hesitate to contact us in our forum thread or our Steam page. Let's jump in, shall we? First, I do want to show off this gorgeous terrain map mode a little bit more. As you can see, the topography has really been brought out in this version of the map. It makes it feel grander, I think, as well as more accurate. And again, it is all hand painted. Among other very exciting things in the changes in terrain are the introduction of two new combat terrain types, tropical savanna and subtropical highland forest, that I'll go into a little bit more later. Moving on to the political map mode. What we're going to do is go region by region to look at some of the major powers that players will be able to interact with and control for themselves. Starting, of course, with the focus of this patch, Nezahualcoyotl, is the Valley of Mexico. One of the very exciting things about our start date in 1428 is that it is a time of transition and growth for many powerful states. In the Valley of Mexico, for example, the region has just emerged from a series of wars called the Teponica Wars, which have thrown down the old Teponica Empire centered in Azcapotzalco here, and allowed the birth of a new power center on the island of Mexico Tenochtitlan. You know them as the Aztecs. They knew themselves as the Mexica. Tenochtitlan is ruled by the Tlatoani Itzcoatl first, and his chief advisor and brilliant strategist, Tlacochcalcotl Tlacaelel. Now, the Mexica and their allies in Tlatelolco, Texcoco, and Tlacopan have plans to institute a new order, with Mexico Tenochtitlan at its center. This is the birth of the Triple Alliance that we can read about in history books today. Their chief ally in this, Texcoco, is a younger power in the eastern part of the valley, Acolohuacan. The city of Texcoco has always been subordinate historically to someone else. Now, under the leadership of Nezahualcoyotl, our chief patron of this patch, they are prepared to step out into the world stage. The Teponica Wars ended with Texcoco in control of much of the eastern basin, and with the brilliant mind of their engineer and poet king, they stand ready to propel themselves to greatness. The other major cog in the Triple Alliance, the third wheel, if you will, Tlacopan, since the fall of Azcapotzalco, has taken the rulership of the western part of the valley. The Tlatoani of Tlacopan has taken the title of Teponacatecutli, the Lord of the Teponecs. If I'm 100% honest, though, Tlacopan does not have quite as many achievements to its name as do Tenochtitlan and Texcoco. Not like Xochimilco, for example. Xochimilco is one of the older states in the valley and home to a great deal of its agricultural wealth. Control of Xochimilco is key to controlling the valley. Incidentally, Xochimilco is one of the only regions of Lake Texcoco which is still in existence today. Most of the lake has now been buried under Mexico City. Xochimilco is one of the only regions one can still take a boat upon the lake. Neighboring Xochimilco is the city-state Confederacy of Chalco. Founded in the early 1200s, the populous and prestigious confederation here is the chief rival to any Mexica expansion in the Valley of Mexico. It is not hard to imagine a different course of history in which the next great Central Mexican empire emanates from Chalco instead of Tenochtitlan. If you act quickly and ally yourself with Tenochtitlan's enemies, this is very possible. Another state which may be of interest to those interested in the history of the region is Teotihuacan. When folks think of Mesoamerica, a lot of the ruins that they picture come from Teotihuacan and its great pyramids of the sun and moon. Teotihuacan was the dominant imperial power for much of the Mesoamerican classical period, but it had fallen to internal revolt around 800 years before the start date of our mod. In the early 1400s, it made a limited comeback, with an Acolwa city of some 1,500 inhabitants springing up amongst its mythical ruins, and asserting control over a few nearby settlements with the help of the recently fallen Teponic Empire. You should be able to see some of the sources on your screen now. Moving on outside of the Valley of Mexico, looking at some of the other Central Mexican powers, we have first and foremost the Great Republic of Tlaxcalan. Chief among the Nahuatl-speaking rivals of the growing Triple Alliance is Tlaxcalan, a state with a very different conception of leadership than the Triple Alliance. Ruled from Tizatlan by a large Republican Senate, Tlaxcalan's highly meritocratic power structure and defensible terrain make it a stubborn military foe. And right next door, the state of Huexotzinco is another powerful opponent of Mexica expansion, and an often on-again ally of Tlaxcalan. Incidentally, Huexotzinco was the home through much of the youth of, again, our patron Nezahualcoyotl. Looking down here some more, we see Cholula. Chololan has been continuously occupied for longer than any other Mesoamerican city, and is known across the land as a center of religion and high culture. It is home to the highest urban population of any city in 1428, and to the Great Pyramid of Cholula, the largest pyramid by volume on the planet. Some of the other major players in central Mexico are the state of Metztitlan, strong mountain kingdom situated in several northern valleys. The mountain passes of Metztitlan were historically the site of more than one military defeat for the armies of the Triple Alliance. They also form sort of part of the edge of civilization as Mesoamericans may have seen it. Here we also see Xilotepec, the most powerful of the many Otomi kingdoms, which are unrelated to the Nahua peoples next door, and don't always get along very well. Another major Nahua power in the period is the state of Cuauhnahuac. the most populous of all the Nahua kingdoms. They control most of the western Morelos Valley and a fortune in cotton fields, another dangerous enemy for any rising powers in the region. Moving onwards to West Mexico, we can see the crux of politics here rely on the triple entente between the major neighbors of Lake Pátzcuaro. Tzintzuntzan, Iwatzio, and Pátzcuaro are three allied kingdoms ruled by the nephews of Tariacuri, a Purepecha king who united the lands of Pátzcuaro Basin under himself in the late 1300s and early 1400s. Upon his death, the three nephews split the kingdom between them and continued to expand. Now, in our timeline, the city of Tzintzuntzan historically reunited the kingdom and formed the Purepecha kingdom, or the Tarascan kingdom, as we call it, which ruled most of western Mexico and successfully defended itself from Mexica invasion on several occasions. Other major powers in the region include the state of Zacatolan. Zacatolan is a coastal trading power with rich cacao and gold resources, and can construct quite the economic empire for themselves along the coast. On the other side of central Mexico and along the Gulf Coast, we see first and foremost Sempualan, which is the largest and greatest of the Totonac cities and one of Hernan Cortez's first native allies in the conquest of Mexico. It might be noteworthy at this point to mention that in keeping with our really breaking down some of the preconceptions of the vanilla representation of Mesoamerica and promoting a lot of the diversity that the region incorporates, Sempualan is represented in game as Totonac, which controls this entire region of the Gulf Coast. Here you can see it is a little bit smaller than that. Several other powerful city-states, such as Xalapa, Teotalpan, and Coahuiltenango, are also spread up and down this region. Perhaps most importantly, we can see the city-state of Agaltepec here in Lake Catemaco with a massive population of some 2,000 people. We are pleased to say that we think the Agaltepec start may be one of the most difficult in all of Europa Universalis history. Moving on towards the southern region of Oaxaca, or as it might be called during this time period, Oaxaca. Zaachla is the major Zapotec power, and the greatest of the Oaxacan powers in game start, but historically soon to fall to internal conflicts, leaving a power vacuum in the area, soon to be filled partially by Yucutza, or Tututepec, a large coastal kingdom founded in the thousands by the famed Mixtec king Eight Deer Jaguar Claw. It expanded to the north and the east at this time, and was never conquered by the Mexica. One of the more prestigious Mixtec kingdoms in the region that is important to mention is Nutnu, or Tilantonco, one of the oldest and most prestigious kingdoms with dynastic connections across all of Oaxaca. Moving out of central Mexico and into the Yucatan. The Yucatan is one of the more politically fascinating regions at this time. In our game start, and for 20 years after our game start historically, the region is ruled with coercion and force by Cocom, the head of the League of Mayapan, ruled by a foreign dynasty, controlling the other powers of the Yucatan mainly through keeping their royal families locked up in Mayapan. Their control is shaky at best. Now, we have moved up the collapse of the League of Mayapan 20 years towards the start date, as we felt that it made for better gameplay. But this is one of the only regions where we've made those kinds of concessions. After the fall of the League of Mayapan, other powers can rise, such as the large military confederation of Kupul and the rich kingdom of oligarchs of Achkanul. Further down the coast, we see Akalantichel, the principal kingdom of the Putun Chantal, who were famous long-distance maritime seafarers, and stand poised to control trade between the rich salt fields of Achkanul and the Gulf Coast. Further down to the Maya highlands, we see first and foremost the Quiche, the most powerful of the highland Maya kingdoms. In 1425, the greatest king of Quiche, Ayib, ascended to the throne. He is primed to unite Guatemala at this point with the assistance of his Cochical allies. Cochical and Chachma are two kingdoms which represent two factions of the same ethnic group here. The Cochical are longtime allies of the Quiche. Many of the rest of these kingdoms are sort of united tags that represent the kingdoms of different ethnic groups in the area, such as the Tzutujil or the Robinal, the Mam, or Cuscatlan, which is the major Pipil power in the region, relatives of the Nahuas of central Mexico who migrated to the area in the early post-classic. Let's jump in game now that we've taken a look at all of the major regions, as Tenochtitlan, and take a look at some of the other new additions to the map. Now, one of the first things that we'll take a look at is the cultural map mode. It is significant to note that there are 90 unique cultures and 14 culture groups, which is a far cry from the general sort of cultural depiction of Mesoamerica as ruled exclusively by Aztecs and Maya. If we take a look here, we can see in central Mexico many related Nahua groups, but also various isolates, such as the Chocho, the Pame, or the Otomi. Up along the coast we see the Totonac, but also the Huasteca. In the west we see the Purepecha, who are a language isolate and unrelated to neighboring peoples, as well as a great deal of other cultures for you to explore, such as the Tlapaneca, who are another language isolate, or the great cultures of Oaxaca, such as the Mixteca or the Zapoteca, the Chatino. Elsewhere, we can see that the Maya are culturally united in the north of Yucatan in the Yucatec culture and language. The Yucatec at this point in the timeline are really at the peak of their cultural and economic might. A great misconception among most popular Mesoamerican representation in today's culture is that the Maya somehow mysteriously disappeared at the end of their classical period, never to be heard from again. This is not the case. The Yucatec, as I said, were really in their golden age at this point. Down in the Maya highlands we see a great cultural variety and a number of different languages and peoples, including the Pipil. Moving on towards the trade map mode. One of the really significant things that we've done between this version of the mod and the previous was that in the first version of the mod, the trade node end nodes of Tzintzuntzan and Tenochtitlan were the only end nodes in the game. This was partially for gameplay purposes, but upon taking another look, we decided to add two more. One in the Quiche city of Comarcaj, and another up at the state of Mayapan. This enables a more sort of dynamic trade competition between the different regions of Mesoamerica, which mirrors a lot of the stuff that was going on in this period. The post-classic is renowned for really being an economically incredibly lively time in Mesoamerica, and the advent of what is called in Mesoamericanist circles the world system. In the post-classic, trade is tended towards longer distances, incorporating areas as far north as the American Southwest. The expansion of trade has also seen the birth of a mercantile class in many states, called the Pochteca among the Nahuas, who have acquired enough wealth and power to challenge the nobility. These are the kinds of really interesting mechanics and events which you can see play out in a lot of these states. Moving from the trade map mode to the trade good map mode, we're incredibly proud of the trade good icons which have been produced by our team leader Ballistic. We have completely overhauled the trade goods to better represent the region. Everything from ceramics to domesticated animals, aquatic foods and construction stone, limestone, maguey plants, and cotton, fruits, feathers, and my personal favorite, Tolteca goods, which is a catch-all term for sort of urban goods. Taking a look at the combat terrain map mode. As I said previously, one of the really exciting things is the addition of new terrain types with all new art by Ballistic. Subtropical highland forest is one, as well as tropical savanna, which we're very excited about. Taking a look at the development map mode here, we see one of our very favorite features in Mesoamerica Universalis, which is our population system. In this mod, one development is equivalent to 1,000 people. There are 3 types of population: commoner, artisan, and elite. The total population of the map overall is 24 million people. Important cities at game start are Cholula, which has 71,000 but 100,000 in 1521. Sempoalan, which has 61,000 at game start. Tenochtitlan, which has 50,000 but later in 1521 has 212,000. And many others. The average city size around this time is 10 to 20,000, and areas with notable population concentrations are, for example, the Valley of Mexico, with around 800,000 people. I will note that the Valley of Mexico at our game start is ripe for agriculture and well below the carrying capacity that it would allow. Pátzcuaro Basin is another major region which could support up to 200,000 people. The Oaxaca Valley, with around 200,000, and northern Yucatan, with 3 million people, and the Gulf Coast, with around 4.4 million. How did we reconstruct these population figures? This is a perfectly reasonable question to ask. We deliberately went with the upper half of estimates, but we did not use the top estimates by any means. We felt that this makes not only for better gameplay for smaller countries, but we believe that the upper half estimates are more accurate representations of how large the population in the region actually was. Still, I should note that we did avoid the very top estimates because we considered them exaggerations. Another important factor was the fact that we were hired by a Native American cabal called the Shadow Masters to destroy Western civilization by using high estimates of the Mesoamerican population. They paid us 10 million shekels in exchange for our loyal services. Now, our reconstruction, like any, has a significant margin of error. We believe that the population of all of Mesoamerica in 1428 was somewhere between 20 to 25 million. We went with the upper part of that range for the mod. The books that we used to reconstruct the political geography usually also provided some kind of population estimates, which we used when available. The book The Native Population of the Americas in 1492 helped us to get a general ballpark of the regional populations. We also used books like The Historical Demography of Highland Guatemala, The Basin of Mexico, Ecological Processes in the Evolution of Civilization, and Peter Gerhard's 2 books, A Guide to the Historical Geography of New Spain and The Southeastern Frontier of New Spain, as well as others that you should see on your screen. Now, how did we convert some of the population data that we pulled from colonial Spanish sources, Spanish tax data of the time? We used a conversion ratio of 1 tributario to 3.9 people. This is an average of 2 possible conversion ratios that we found, 3.3 and 4.5. We used a conversion ratio of 1 casas to be 7 people, which was the ratio used by William Sanders in the native population of the Americas in 1492. I should note that we're not claiming our reconstruction is 100% accurate. It definitely has a wide margin of error, like all current population estimates for the pre-Hispanic Americas, thanks to the unique difficulties in the task. Frankly, decades more demographic work is required to make more accurate estimates, but we believe that we've gotten somewhere close, given the current research, and we will be conducting further refinements in the future. At this time, I would like to make some important thanks. First and foremost, to the fans. All the people that have left us comments, both positive and negative. Everybody that has took interest in the mod. You guys help us to keep doing what we do, and give us the courage and the inspiration to continue producing the mod. From our team members, I would like to thank Ballistic, or Downvoting Corvo on Reddit, our project leader, Not only did he make all of this possible, really, but he made the terrain, the political, cultural, and development map modes, and made most of the trade goods map mode. Our team member John Taben made part of the trade goods map mode and created all the regions and areas. Two flying potatoes set all province positions, which is frankly a thankless task. Ishki made scripts that saved us a lot of time, and Ad Minus, who dug through dozens of pre-Hispanic and colonial codices and lienzos and drew hundreds of flags for the Mesoamerican city-states in our mod. My name is Nathan C. I made this video. I did almost all of the research for events and decisions. I helped design some of the game mechanics and plan the project, translated a lot of province names, and tried to be a general encyclopedia when we need it. Now, what is coming for the future of Mesoamerica Universalis? First of all, in 0.7 there's still a lot of work to do. We will be working on the Central Mexican events and mechanics that we have planned, events for the major powers, events for the culture in general, so minors are included, events for the branches of their faith, the Nahua faith, and unique mechanics for Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlaxcalan. We will also be having more government stat events. Although I didn't talk about government stats during this development diary, we are continuing to incorporate them at every level of gameplay. We feel it helps us to accurately represent the kinds of choices and governance that were present in the period. Naturally, there will also be a lot of bug fixing and a lot of polishing. We hope that you can see a lot of the polishing and such that we've already been doing between the last version and this one. You can follow us on our forum thread, on our Steam page, and on our Reddit. We hope to post similar dev diaries both in the forum and Reddit posts, as well as in video form like this in the future. Please do continue to keep up with us, leave your comments, criticisms, and concerns, and we hope to talk with you more next time. Thank you so much for your time.